How's everyone doing this morning? Okay, not nearly enough of you have had your Starbucks. I'm Adam Cohen. I blog at dadarocks.com. On Twitter, I'm at dadarocks.
I'm Lauren Jimison. I blog at A Mommy in the City, and my Twitter handle is at A Mommy in the City.
My name is Doug French. I'm a dad blogger. I've been blogging at laidoffdad.org for almost 10 years, and I'm also the co-founder of the Dad 2.0 Summit, which is a social media conference devoted to connecting brands with dads and expanding the message of what engaged fatherhood's like in our current parenting climate.
All right, so now that we've done our little intros and we see the clock running, we're going to dump right into questions. So what does your personal brand represent?
I actually moved, my blog, A Mommy in the City, kind of chronicles my life. I moved from Florida to New York City 2 years ago. And so it chronicles my life of moving from the suburbs into the city, and I have a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. So it's kind of raising my children in the city and how it's, how much the suburbs is different from city life and living here and raising children. So that's kind of where I started out, and it's flourished since then. I started my blog a year and a half ago, and it's turned into so much more than that. But that was kind of the firm foundation that I started off with.
Doug, what about your brand?
Well, Laid Off Dad obviously began when I was laid off and I was a dad. And that's the joke. I mean, I've lost a number of jobs. I've been laid off from a bunch of jobs, and so Dad 2 is the one I had to make up. I had to make up my own job to work on that. I had the exact opposite story. I was here for 20 years, and last fall I moved to Ann Arbor, and I'm actually doing the exact opposite thing for a number of reasons. I mean, the other story I have is my ex-wife and I blog together about co-parenting. We have 50-50 custody of our 2 boys, and we live about a quarter mile apart. So we write a blog together called When the Flames Go Up. But I think, my brand, or what I'm trying to put out there, is just the idea that dads can be engaged and interested and be huge dorks about it at the same time. My 2 favorite things are writing and being a dad to my boys, and so it would seem that dad blogging would follow naturally.
All right, so now this is the 140 conference, State of Now. So talk about your use of Twitter. How have you used Twitter? How have you grown your brand on Twitter, your parenting blog on Twitter? Do you engage? Do you dialogue? Do you just put it out there and see what comes back?
Well, I actually started on Twitter way before I had a blog, and once I had a blog and changed my Twitter handle over to A Mommy in the City, I really saw that my followers grew, because I was putting myself out there, and on my blog I put out the troubles that I have in motherhood and the trials and tribulations, and so through that and on Twitter I put it all out there, and it's so amazing to see the people that will respond back. And if I'm having a really bad day because my toddler is throwing tantrums, that people will come back and say, I've had those days too before. So I really think it's about engaging with your followers, and that will help, build your audience, because there are so many people out there that have gone through, the same things as, all of us moms do. And so that really does help. It's just, really putting yourself out there, be honest. And I call them my Twitter friends, because there's a lot of people that I have not met in person, but I talk to them all the time on Twitter. So it really helps kind of get me through my day, just knowing that I have people out there that can relate to my story.
Well, I guess for lots of parents, especially parents who are home, I mean, Twitter is the water cooler. It's the virtual, that's where you can actually converse with adults when you're saddled with young children. So that's an outlet. Obviously, I don't have that as a problem as much. I do live in a new town, and I just kind of started my life over again, so Twitter's been great for that. But also, it's Twitter. We see Twitter a lot in the engagements we work on, both at Dad 2.0 and XY Media, which is the parent company. We just built a campaign for Norelco about the new face of Dad, and many of the engagements now involve Twitter parties and hashtags. And I think, as of now, Twitter is something that brands want to rely on. Obviously, it's a constant struggle in terms of how to quantify reach and how to recognize what's being seen and how to make impressions on people. And so I know that the flavor of the month now is to have a Twitter party or have a chat and count your hashtags and see if that is bearing fruit with that. So obviously, I try to stride both. I mean, LOD is both. My personal Twitter feed, I've 5 Twitter feeds, so which speaks to some degree of schizophrenia that I cope with on a daily basis. But LOD, I can kind of just be myself. Dad to Summit is more about what our announcements are and so forth. But yeah, it's multiple uses. I mean, again, it's a very immediate way not to feel lonely, because the internet's great for finding your tribe out there.
So how do you keep authentic? Like, what brings you back to your roots, in terms of being who you are and making sure that you're being just to who you are? As you said, you now have brands kind of coming at you and engaging you with a marketing kind of flavor. I know a mommy in the city once in a while gets invited to review an item or go to a certain place or meet a celebrity. So how do you make sure that this is coming out of a true, authentic point of view?
Well, the brands actually respond to that. I mean, I think it's a stronger discussion with some more than others. But if you're engaging with a particular voice, you don't want then to iron out all the personality from that voice. If you want to make that voice sterile with your own viewpoints, you're not getting what you were engaged with in the first place. So, and brands are getting that. The whole idea that, I don't want to use just your 3 letters of your Twitter handle, but then say, you should buy this. I mean, the whole point is, we have a voice, being authentic is easy. I can just, I just have no filter. I just say stuff. And that's the thing you want to impress on brands. That's what you're engaging with. That's what's different than a standard campaign.
I can testify. He really has no filter.
I think it's also important that, knowing that you can say no. You are allowed to say no to brands. I do have brands that contact me all of the time, events that, living in New York City, there's events every day, and if it's something that I personally cannot, relate to, then I say no, even if they're offering me money. It's important, but it's not that important. What's more important is staying true to myself and those who read my blog, because the second that I put out a tweet that is not me, not my voice, or a blog post that is not my voice, I'm going to get called out for it. So just knowing that it's okay to say no sometimes is really important. And it took me a while to get there because, yeah, the money does speak and, it's nice. But I think what's even nicer, and I think what will get me further, is being able to stay true to myself and my voice.
That's what you want to bracket. You would tell the brands too. They respect that. They'll say, "I will not compromise," because I do have a brand. The voice becomes something you're known for, and you can say, "I'm not going to compromise that." I've been doing this for 7 years or 5 years, however long. I had my 5 Twitterversary not too long ago. I got a tweet about it.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, you say no, and it's great that they're even offering you money because. Usually it's like, please share with your readers, and I have a spam filter set up so that please share with your readers goes right into the bucket.
Yeah, I have a spam filter. It's called my inbox.
Yeah.
I get 500 pictures a day,
Yeah.
so keeping authentic has been one of those hard balances. I definitely when I started, it was like an overwhelming pitch, and now what goes up on my blog is definitely something that I approve, because what I was learning very quickly was people don't really read, even just by posting like, oh, we did this razor. It's like, but in the comments it was like, it wasn't that great of a razor. It was like, oh, I didn't read your comments. I just saw that you posted about this. So it was like an automatic stamp of approval from my side. So I started realizing very quickly that the only thing that was really going to go up was things that I really enjoyed, just because you have that gloss over effect of like, I've read it, it's great. I didn't see any of the negatives on the bottom. It's like, oh, you got to read a little bit. So going into your use of social media, how has this really impacted your family?
Well, aside from my blog, I also freelance write. I write for Babbel.com. And then through starting my blog, I started my own social media consulting company. So I have 3 other companies that I work for and manage their Twitter handles and their Facebook pages, and also write for them. So on top of all of this, I still am a stay-at-home mom to both of my girls. So I try to manage my time very wisely because I don't have anyone that watches my girls. So I think that's kind of the biggest impact that's made on my family and myself, is trying to manage everything while still being on Twitter on all 4 of my handles. all day. So I think it's really just learning how I'm up a lot at night and early in the morning on Twitter talking to people, and I've noticed that there's a lot of other moms and dads that are on Twitter, at those times as well. But it truly is just learning how to manage the time, and I've noticed, through all of this, when people are on, when people are, not really online and things like that. So I think it's just, managing the time.
Well, mine's a bit different because my kids are old enough. My kids are 10 and 7. They know what Twitter is. They know what Instamatic is. They know what Facebook is. And I really want to ground them in the idea. I mean, my 10-year-old would say, "Are you putting this on Instagram?" And I will say no, because I never put pictures of my kids online. I don't think it's fair to them. I mean, I like try to make my blog about my experience as being their parent, but not being about them per se. So at the same time, there are a lot of parents who've been at this for a very long time, who began when their kids were newborns, who are now in 5th, 6th grade, and obviously there's a boundary that goes up. You have to respect the fact that these are separate people, and their lives aren't your lives. You can talk about your perception of them, and like Jeff said, I love the idea that my kids will be able to read my blog someday. But yeah, I'm very circumspect about how this affects them, because when they Google themselves, that's my filter. That's the filter about when my ex and I write about co-parenting. Our filter is, do we want our kids to be proud of us?
Now, writing with your ex, that's a direct correlation to impact of the family, because we've talked privately before about how you'd write a post and then leave it in draft, and she would come and read it and make sure it's approved. So.
Oh yeah, we read. Every post goes up. We read each other's posts before it goes up. No one gets sandbagged, and but they're pretty frank, and that's actually, it's those posts that have helped us co-parent now to the point where we're friends again. And that's better for the kids. The kids can just kind of walk back and forth between the houses, and there's just no stress. But I spoke at Blog Her last year, and was talking about how blogs can have a deleterious impact on your relationship because it's such a solitary thing. But in my case, or in our case, our co-parenting blog saved ours.
Well, I know from my perspective, it's kind of changed how I look at a lot of things in this world. I've definitely expanded my view of what my family gets to do, because it's the pitch kind of mechanism comes to me. It's like, oh, well, you get to have this great experience that you would never be able to have unless you were doing what you do. And even more so, about 6 months ago, I was kind of recruited into a new position in life where I took a web position. I was always coding and programming and designing and directing the website, and then I now moved over into a social media marketing kind of position. So for my family, it had a direct correlation of what's next on the horizon, and kind of changed that trajectory of life too. So now I work for J&R Junior, which is a subdivision of J&R Music, and so we've had things like yesterday we had Justin Bieber there, and that. So. It's kind of, you take it all in the granular steps of what your family could do and how you could do it. I definitely know about the late nights, as you guys got, the questions for this at 2 in the morning or something like that. And so it's an interesting balance.
I definitely think that your family can benefit from what, we're doing. And like the pitches, like you said, I mean, I've taken, my daughters on trips before, because of brands that were invited, and these are things that I would have never been able to introduce her to. So I consider myself very lucky, and I hope that my daughters will consider themselves lucky growing up, because if I had never started blogging or any of this, then they wouldn't have had half of the opportunities that we have now.
See, that's the thing though. I'm very conscious of the fact that my kids don't know any different than me getting free stuff. And that actually, I don't want them to feel entitled by that. In fact, quite the reverse is true for me. I mean, I feel I have the best job in the world, and my entitled kids are like, "Dad, you have the lamest job in the world." But I want them to realize that I don't, but it'll take them a while, because when you're 10, everything is completely lame.
All right. Well, we got 20 seconds left, so 10-second tips from each of you. What would you recommend parents start doing for their blog to get up and running?
Right. Get out there and do it. Especially if you're a man, if you're a father, we want more dad voices out there. We want more role models for our boys. We want more honest stories about fatherhood, about emotion, about triumph and loss. So just get out and do it. It's going to find, if it's good, it'll find a home.
Mine is just find your voice, find out who you are, and stay true to who you are, no matter how many pitches come in.
All right, thanks so much.